Welcome to part 3 introductory session. First of all, lots of congratulations for coming into the part 3 and out of the scariest part of the MRCOG, that is MRCOG part 2. So ultimately you all are through that and now you are into the third part, and of course it is easier than part 2. This I can surely reassure you, right? Yes, Dr. Zarina. Thank you, Dr. Chavi. Yeah, I know everybody knows that who has gone through that can really feel how the part 2 is. Now you can be a bit relaxed, but of course we can't stop. We have to still go, just keep moving ahead, because still this is a final step to our destination. So before we achieve our dream degree, this is the last step. So we will not stop here. We will still keep moving for next 3 months and we'll take rest after we achieve this degree. So here we go with today's session of how to prepare for part 3 in 90 days. We have exactly 90 days. The exam is scheduled on 6, 7, and I think 10, 11. So these types of dates are there. So basically exactly 3 months are there. So the relevance of this session, how we are going to work in next 90 days. So let's start with that. And in between, wherever you have any doubts or any questions, you are very much welcome to ask your queries. And in the end also, we will have a question session open for you all. So what is the agenda for the today's session? First, we are going to talk about what is part 3 format. We have to understand the marks allocation. Those who are with me since part 1, part 2, they know that how we plan our studies. We plan our studies so as to gain the maximum marks, right? So it's not about covering the syllabus. It is not about reading it thoroughly. It's about planning your studies, how you can get the maximum marks. Then preparation strategy. So once you know how the marks are allocated, how can we prepare ourselves for that? What should be the right strategy to plan for that? And finally, how to read, revise, and recall, right? Because we are reading, but then we have to revise and we have to recall that in the exam. So how to go about that? So these are the things we are going to cover today. So let's start one by one. My first question is, what is part 3 format? The type of questions. In part 1, we said they are single best answers. In part 2, I introduced you all with the EMQs. So what is new in the part 3? So part 3 has something which we call as stations. Stations are there. Basically, there is a chamber. You have to go, you have to talk, you have to speak. There, whoever is the role player, maybe that person is a patient, that person is your junior, or there is a consultant sitting in front of you. So depending on what type of station it is, there is a person and you have to go there and speak to that person. In total, there are 14 tasks for you, 14 tasks. So 14 stations in a row. One after another, you are going to next station, right? And every station has a task. What is the task? The same tasks you do in your clinics. The way you look, you just have the patients in your clinic. You talk to them, you make a diagnosis, you explain them the management. Similar thing is there, right? Some of the stations are that the junior is in front of you and then you have to explain something to the junior. So depending on like in which station you are standing, accordingly you have to go ahead with that station. So overall, 14 stations. So you can see one after another. You can see the windows there. Similarly, you have the doors. You come out of one door, you enter the second door. Now there are 14 stations and each station is 10 minutes. When you come out of the chamber and in the next chamber, you just stand outside for 2 minutes. right? You are allowed to stand outside for 2 minutes. In the 2 minutes, you will read. See that papers are pasted on the next chamber, right? On the door or on the wall of the next chamber. And you just have to stand there and read all those things what are written on those papers. And then from there you will get the information what task you are expected to perform, whom you are going to meet in the chamber. And from there you have to enter the chamber. Next 10 minutes you have to complete your task. Seems quite adventurous. Yes, it is so. And let me tell you, this 3 hours, this complete process will take 3 hours. Once you enter, go into the first chamber, and once you leave the last chamber, that is the 14th station, it is 3 hours. And mind you, these will be the fastest 3 hours of your life. You will not be able to think about anything, that how many stations you have done or how many stations are left. You will not be able to gather anything in your mind. You just go, perform, and just come out. Okay? So these would be the fastest 3 hours of your life. And this 3 hours, you can take it as a 3 hours movie, which is going to be screened on that day. But as we all know, for the 3 hours movie, there is a long practice. There is a long dedication behind that. When we see a 3 hours movie on the picture hall, we know that for how many years or how many months or how many times these actors, actresses, they have performed. So that is what we have to do for ourselves for this exam. For that 3-minute fastest movie, we have to prepare for a few months, maybe 3 months, 6 months, or whatever is required. And then we go and perform there. So part 3 consists of 14 stations of 10 plus 2 minutes. There are no preparatory stations and there will be no breaks. No loo break, no water break, nothing. Just come out, go inside, come out, go inside. There is no break in between. Syllabus, it deals with all of your modules which you have been reading from the part 2. And mostly they give one station from every module. So overall you will have 14 stations from 14 modules. But many a times stations are overlapping also, right? So like a case of perineal tear repair, it can be a case of core surgical or it can be a case of postpartum module. Sometimes they mix two things, like they are giving you the scenario of subfertility and then the patient is diagnosed as endometriosis. So you are dealing with the subfertility as well as you are dealing with the benign gynae. So 2 or 3 modules may together be involved in any particular station. So that is also very, very important. So when we practice the stations, first we will practice module wise, and then we will also try to practice where the 2 or 3 modules are added together in any particular station. Now, what is the problem? We have done our part 2 and we have a good knowledge. I know all the guidelines. So what is the problem with the part 3? So problem is this 10 minutes hack. If they remove this 10 minutes bar, I think almost 90% of the people will pass part 3. Almost more than 90% of the people will pass part 3 if they remove this 10 minutes hack. So what is the problem with this 10 minutes hack? Because in this 10 minutes, you have to gather all the information from your role player or the patient, whoever is there. You have to explain the diagnosis and you have to talk about the management options as well. Now, if you remember, just I take an example of like ectopic pregnancy, right? So if you remember, you have a very long guideline and you have a nice guideline as well. Now, if I tell you you have only 5 minutes to tell me what can you expect, how can you explain the patient the ectopic pregnancy, and how will you manage that patient. So you will say, oh my God, it's such a long topic. How can I summarize into the 3 minutes or 4 minutes? But that is the task of the part 3 exam. So here lies your challenge. You have to take out the important points, talk about only those points which are required, and filter out all the remaining information. This is the most important skill you need to go about for the part 3 exam. If you are talking in detail, if you are explaining things too much, then you will never be able to achieve the target of 10 minutes. So be ready to summarize the things. How do we summarize the things? Or how do we learn to do these things? So practice is the key. Practice makes the person perfect. So the only thing which is required in the part 3 is speaking, speaking, and speaking. Don't be shy. If you feel that you are speaking wrong, if you feel you are speaking something extra, no worries, because without speaking, it cannot be corrected. So never think that everybody other in the class is listening to me. If I ask in the group, if I post my recording in the group, everybody is going to look at it. No. Everybody is busy in improving himself. Nobody is interested in your mistakes, right? And you are the only one who can correct your mistakes, right? So mentor can guide you, like you have to make these things speak like this or that, but finally you are the one who are going to send the recording and then take up that feedback and make it perfect. So practice is the key. When we start initially with the exam preparation, you will be like taking almost 1 day for one station, right? But as the time advances, you can do within half hour or within 20 minutes one station, right? So in that case, once you start with one station a day, slowly and slowly you have to increase your practice to 2 to 3 stations a day, then 4 to 5 stations a day, and by the time you reach near the exam, when it is almost 15-20 days, you would be required to do 10 stations a day. But at that time, your speed has increased, so you can do even 10 stations in 4 hours. So this is how we have to increase our practice as we move towards the exam. This is important. As I told you, 10 minutes is the biggest challenge. If that is removed, everybody is fine. But this is the problem. So be concise. You have to summarize. See what is important, what has to be told to the patient. We cannot talk about complete guideline. And even if I manage to speak about the complete guideline, still it is not going to help me. Right? The part 3 exam is not about like you have learned and you just go and speak. It is a two-way communication. You have to listen to patient, you have to answer her concerns, what she is looking for. That is the basic point of exam. So it is not about memorizing the guideline or memorizing the pill and just going to throw that information on the patient. It is what your patient is asking. Are you explaining that? Are you answering your patient or not? So that is be concise and summarize your content. Now you have understood what is part 3, how it is. Stations are there. 14 stations are there in a row. For every station, you have 10 minutes. And that is the most important thing which you have to take care of. So we have to summarize all the things and we have to keep practicing. Now, to add to this, what more in the store? How we are marked for these stations? Are we marked for like in 10 minutes, what did I speak? How I explained? Or there is something like structured thing is there? Yes, Absolutely, there is a structure. You are marked for the 5 domains. Patient safety, communication with patient and their relatives, communication with colleagues, information gathering, and applied clinical knowledge. These are the 5 domains on which you are marked. For every domain, there is 2 marks. 2 marks. If you gain 2 in that domain, that is the maximum marks. 1 if it is a borderline mark, and 0 if you fail. So 0, 1, and 2, that is the only marking for each domain. So patient safety, communication with the patients and relatives, communication with colleagues, information gathering, and applied clinical knowledge. Now, patient safety. What is patient safety? Because there are certain points which we need to take care of in that particular patient. So we will have to remember those points. Like these are the 4 safety points which are important in this particular scenario, and I have to talk about them, right? So how will you come to know about the patient safety points? First thing is, if you are in the course, then of course I keep on highlighting. So all the templates you will see, they are colored. Like the patient safety points, color coded templates are there. So the patient safety points will be marked as red. The information gathering points are marked as green. The communication with the colleagues is marked as blue. Then applied clinical knowledge is marked as purple, violet, and the information gathering is marked as pink. So as you go through those templates, you will immediately know what are the points in what category. Now, it is important to know because in exam, you have to cover all the domains. Like if you cover patient safety, but you do not talk about the patient with colleagues, then you will lose marks there. Now you see, if you their applied clinical knowledge is only 2 marks, right? Your every station will be having either 4 domains or the 5 domains. So if at all you are looking at the 4 domains, then 8 marks is there, 2, 2, 2, and 2. So total 8 marks is there for that particular station if you are tested on the 4 domains. Now in that applied clinical knowledge, you covered very well. So you got 2 marks only. For remaining 6, you have to follow the other things. You have to talk about the patient safety. You have to talk about the communication with colleagues, means where you will involve the colleagues in that. Then communication with the patients or the relatives, how you are talking to patient. Patient would like to come back to you again or not. So the applied knowledge is only 2 marks. Remaining things are the other things also you need to cover. So this seems like, oh my God, applied knowledge was easy. We knew everything. We have just learned in part 2 and we can just tell everything to the patient. But the important is this might seem to be like a disadvantage, but actually this is an advantage. Because sometimes they give you very vague stations. Sometimes they give you a station which is out of blue, like Charcot-Marie-Tooth syndrome. You have never heard of that. How would you know? So you still know what is communication with the patients. You still know communication with the colleagues. You know how to take up the information. So you know 3 or 4 of those domains. So you can still pass with the borderline, even without having any applied clinical knowledge. Of course, this is not true for all the stations. Like if you don't have any clinical knowledge, in every station you are marked 0 for the applied clinical knowledge, then it's not going to work. But this I'm talking about, like if any scenario comes just in front of you, still you can pass the exam. For that, what is important is you should know what are the basics of patient safety, what are the basics of communications, what are the basics of information gathering. So when you know those, then you know that at least you have covered those common points which were important. So when we start with our course, the first 3 days are dedicated to the videos which are recorded for understanding domains. So you will go through them and you will understand what every domain seems to be. What are the points which are to be included in every domain? So now once we know the basic points, then as we go further in the next modules or in the next stations, then we just have to add up the points which are specific to that station, because you already know the basics. Now you just have to keep adding what extra is to be told for this particular station. So therefore, understanding the basics of these is very, very important. You know the basics, you know 70% of the points. You just have to add 2 or 3, 4 new points for that particular station, and then you are perfect with the station. Right? Any questions till now? Fine till now? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, great. So till now, I've created a lot of chaos, told you what type of stations, like how many stations we are going to have, what all you will be marked off. But now here is a beautiful journey. So imagine yourself enjoying this. Wouldn't you love it? Of course. So let's plan the strategy to just enjoy this ride. 3 months or 6 months is a very common question which is asked when I talk about the strategy. First point comes as 3 months or 6 months. See, it is not about like 3 months or 6 months. It is about how much dedication or how much passion you are with, how much passion you are ready to go ahead with the exam. Because I believe that even if we have 1 year or we have 6 months, we study for only the exam when we have a target in front of us. So ultimately, the studies are usually for 3 or 4 months only when we are targeted towards any particular thing. Now, 3 months is sufficient if you are fluent in English and you have good communication skills. 3 months is quite enough with the type of things which we, the way, the strategically, how we go with the syllabus. 3 months is enough. Yes, Dr. Lavanya, as usual, our motto is to cover the syllabus in 70% less study time. So same thing we will be following for the part 3 as well. Yes, if you can spare 2 hours daily, it's good enough. You can do in 3 months. But of course, as I said, last 15 days will require more effort from your side, like maybe 4 hours or so. And I think we all can do that. Yeah? Is it fine? Yes. Okay. So basically, how to plan the strategy. Now, what is the approach to preparation? Now, station is a 10 minutes job, 2 minutes plus 10 minutes. So I have divided this station and this 2 minutes time, that is total 12 minutes time, into 6 sections. Because we will be working on each and every section. As we work on each and every section, our like half of the syllabus will get prepared in the initial few days only. Once you learn the basics, you practice the main points, you have done the half of your job. So how do I divide them into the various topics? So first is 2 minutes outside the station. This is the most important part of your station, because these are the 2 minutes which are your preparatory 2 minutes. After that, it is introduction and setting the stage, or there is set agenda. Then there is information gathering and history taking, explain the diagnosis, go about the management plan, and conclusion. Now, in this point, the introduction, setting the stage, and conclusion, they are very much fixed. They are very much fixed, right? Only there are few exceptions to this rule. So what I have done is, when I've created the videos for the introduction and conclusion, I've given you the option of 2 or 3 templates. Like you can speak like this in the introduction, you can speak like this, you can set agenda like this. These are the points need to be covered in set agenda. And these are the points where you build up the rapport with the patient. And this is the way you have to conclude the station. So when I've given you the multiple templates there, now your job is to, while you are viewing that video, the thing comes on your screen, the sentences comes on your screen. And then I have told you there to pause now. Pause, choose your sentence, which you will be taking up for your station. Speak up that sentence 10 times till you are ready with that sentence. Then move ahead and go on to the next sentence. So if you do this exercise religiously, you are preparing these things. They are the standard parts. They are the standard parts. Out of these 6 parts, you have prepared the 2 parts very nicely. Introduction, setting stage, and conclusion. So 2 parts are done in first 3 days of your course, right? So out of 6, 2 things you have practiced. Now coming to history taking. History taking, there is a general template of the history as well, right? So in the initial videos, you will also find the basics of history taking. What all points we need to take care of while we are doing the history taking? Like we have to start with the open question. This is a simple thing. So if you start the history with the open question, you get a tick on your mark sheet and you get a marks for that, right? You haven't asked, you haven't gathered any information right now, but just you started with the open question, you gather a marks. So if you know like what all things where I can gather the marks, in the history also, like once you are through that basic template, mostly you are going to pass borderline even if you do not know any specific things for that station. So basic history taking will be covered in the initial topics itself, preparing you for at least the borderline marks. And then as we move forward with every module, we will also talk about the template for that module, the common template for that module, so that you know what are the history questions which are important for that particular module. So once we have done for that module, so then comes various stations, because there will be certain points which will be specific to that particular station, like a patient of sexual assault. So there will be some things which we have to ask to that patient only, which we usually do not ask to other patients. So then there are certain specific points for any particular station. So that will complete our history taking. But definitely with the basic knowledge, basic template, basic practice, how to ask the history, how to ask the menstrual history, how to ask the sexual history. So what are the questions that you come to know from the initial videos only? So first 3 days, if you have seen the schedule, then they are dedicated to understanding domains and the basic templates. So in these days, you will be remembering, you will be memorizing the common questions, the common sentences which you are going to use in all your further stations. So till now, if you have covered half of your job. Now comes the role of explain diagnosis and management plan. For explain diagnosis and management plan, the important thing is that you should have a list of stations for any particular module. Like if I'm like we are doing the sub-fertility module. So we need to know what are the expected stations. Then only I know that how to explain this to the patient. Like I know that there is a scenario of tubal infertility, tubal factor infertility in these patients. So how to explain the tubal infertility? So that practice is explain the diagnosis. And once we have made the diagnosis, then there is management plan. So if you do these step by step, like if you have covered the 3 initially, introduction, setting stage, information gathering, and conclusion, you have already covered. So now when you are doing the module, you can pay your complete attention on the explain diagnosis and management plan, right? So this way, It saves a lot of your time because I am preparing first all of you for the basics, for the basic things which are going to work in every station throughout your course. So half the job is done initially, and then the remaining half of the job, that is diagnosis and management, that we will keep on doing with every module. The most important, another thing, that is 2 minutes outside the station also needs to be practiced. So how do we start? So first we start by fixing the introduction, set agenda, conclusion, and understanding the domains. So first we have made a good the foundation stone. I've laid the foundation stone with these points. Now I will add the history taking to this. Then I'll add the diagnosis and the management. Remember, you can easily add the diagnosis and management also into your curriculum if you have a list of expected stations. So when you go and read your modules, in the first block, you will see the list of expected stations. And below that, you will find all the pills which are required for those expected stations. So you will find everything there in one format. I think I have a slide. Okay, we'll just go to that. First, let us take one by one. So this is 2 minutes outside the station. This is very, very important. So once you are outside the station, you have to think about who you are, because they will write that you are ST5 in the antenatal clinic today, and you are going to talk to Miss Mary, this, right? So who you are, where you are, to whom you are talking. What is your task? This is very, very important. It's important to understand what you are expected to do for that patient. What are the domains being tested? And broader outline according to domains has to be created once you are outside. Like you see that this is a task of FGM. So you know that what are the safety points. I have to ask about the interpreter. I have to ask about the mental health. I have to offer her the HCV testing. So these are the, and then psychological counseling. So these are the safety points which we need to do in the FGM. Once we have made a note of these points, then immediately in exam, when we see that this is FGM station, we have to remember that, oh, these are the 4 points I need to ask here. And this is what you have to recall in those 2 minutes. How is this possible? When you bundle up these features. Once you remember that, okay, postpartum patient, these 4 points. FGM patient, these 4 points. Right? So you just, if you have remembered it like in a bundled plan, then you can immediately go and speak that in front of the role player. See, because it's only a 10 minutes time, so you cannot think anything new there. You don't have enough time for that. So how the things should be imbibed into you, and they should come out reflexly. Okay, as you see the station, the things should start coming out reflexly. How it is possible? With the practice. Like when you drive a car, first day, you have to take care where you are going, where is the how you have to turn and all these things. But once you are driving for a certain number of days, it is reflexly into you. Then you don't have to look so carefully. You can just drive at the spinal level. But similarly, if you are practicing, then you will not have to think there in the exam, and the things will come out reflexly. So that is the purpose why we have created this. Like first we will cover the syllabus. In between we have the revision sessions where we'll be talking about the recall stations. Of course, the live sessions are also from the recalls, but in live sessions we are doing module wise. Your exam will not be module wise. Exam, you will have a mixed stations from different modules. So we do some sessions of the practice sessions of the mixed stations as well. Then there is a 7-station mock as well also before the exam. That will give you a real feel of like moving from one room to another, to another, to another, and to another. So you do 7 sessions in a row. So we are trying to give you the practice in all the ways. First, teaching you like module wise, giving you the concept of various modules very clearly. Then revising in the mixed sessions, the recalls again, and particularly the recent ones, they all are going to be covered. And then finally, the last practice of the mock. In between, everybody has a 2 hours of personal mentorship. So wherever you find a difficulty, you can just book your consultation on the link, and we can discuss your weaknesses, wherever you want to improve your communication skills, whichever thing we are not able to discuss in the group, that we can always discuss in the personal mentorship sessions. So this is how we are going to cover. Now, time distribution for the station is very important. So 2 minutes outside the station, followed by you have only 1 minute for introduction. So now, as I told you, we cannot think anything new. So we have to fix one introduction. That is why I've given you 3-4 options in the first video. You can choose your option and stick to that. 3 minutes for history taking. This is the biggest challenge because history taking is very long. Particularly in fertility and urogyne, it is more longer. And let me tell you, sometimes the candidates, they just keep on taking history for 7-8 minutes. That's absolutely a blunder. So one should not do that. So you have to practice making your things in the 3 minutes. Then 1 minute to explain the diagnosis. So when I told you that like tubal factor infertility, you have to explain. So just be prepared for only 2-3 lines. That you have to explain the diagnosis in 2-3 lines. I know that if I give you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can easily explain what is tubal factor infertility. The challenge is that you have to explain that in 1 minute. So that's what is the practice about. Finally, we have 3 minutes for the management and 1 minute for the conclusion. So when we are reading, we have to practice ourselves to go through these timelines. This is how we start. I just now told you this is a glimpse from the website. So like this, when we will start with the modules, you see the fertility module and you see the expected stations and the patient information leaflets on the first. So here you will find all the expected stations which can be possible, and the patient information leaflets required to talk about those things. They are posted just below that. In part 3, it's not about the guidelines, it is more about the patient information leaflets. Then subfertility, basic, complete and unexplained infertility. So I've talked about the basic template of subfertility in general, followed by I am taking the various topics which are asked in the exam. How to explain the various scenarios of male infertility, how to explain the diagnosis, what are the management options we can think about in the male infertility scenarios, and how to explain that to the patient. So these all things like are covered in this video. Then there is single parent scenario, how you will deal with this, then female infertility scenario. So like this, first when we start any module, first 2-3 days are dedicated for like you can go through these videos and prepare yourself for the session. Then we do the live session. In live session, every active participant will get a chance to present the case, right? So every person will get a chance to present the case, and the feedback will be given. Recording of the session will be posted within next 24 hours so that you can listen to it again and see how you can improve. And next 2 to 3 days are dedicated to the homework stations, because now whatever I've given you the concept in the live session, in the video sessions, now you practice doing the homework. Once you do the homework, the feedback is provided for that. What is the importance of patient information leaflet? Do we have to learn them, Dr. Chibi? Usually in these videos, I've covered the required information from the patient information leaflets in the question and answer format. Like what are the commonly asked questions by the role players? But yes, when you are going through the first time, any new because you will see the expected stations here in subfertility are 8 or 10. So we will be covering all of those. But when we move on to the ANC or the maternal medicine, you will find a huge number of stations. So in that cases, whatever stations we have not covered, in those you can just go through the pill so that you know what are the important points. That is the role of going through the pill. Pills are very easy and they are very like in a simple language. So you can just have one look at them so that it just gets covered. Nothing much. It's not something which you have to mug up word by word. Right? So this is how you will find on your website. And then we do a live session followed by the homework stations. This is how we are going to cover all the modules. Where they are available, as you see, I have told you expected station and the patient information leaflets. So below these expected station, there are various links or the downloads which you can see, and there you will find all the information leaflets. So everything is ready for you on the same portal. Okay, so one by one I'll answer. Yes. Okay. So basically the question is about how many sessions a week. So usually there will be, because one class I'm going to divide in two parts. So one module in a week will be covered. I've already posted the schedule. You can just look at that. To cover one module, we will have two live sessions. Because like if 10 students are there, we can't have 10 stations in a day because that session will become too long. Everybody will be tired. So we'll have 5 or 6 stations on one day and 5 or 6 stations on the next day. But that will be one module, right? So effectively 1 week, one module. So that is how many stations a week. Okay, what about recalls? Recalls totally whatever we are doing in the courses, totally recalls. The scenarios we are taking in the live sessions are recalls. The scenarios we are doing in the revision sessions are recalls. And the homework stations are also recalls. So you will cover up almost all of the recalls while we are practicing the stations. Timer watch will not be there. So you have to be prepared like how much information you can tell in 10 minutes, right? So there is no timer watch. Okay, so Dr. Salina, how to register in your course as active participant? So, okay, so basically we have the phone number here in this next slides also, and you can just text me, or there is email where you can just tell me, and we will share you the link where you can register, right? There is a link where you have to pay and you will get registered through that, right? In the last slide, there is a QR code also which you can scan and go to our website, and there also you can directly go ahead with that. Or if you are in our Telegram group, then also we have links posted there. Any books to be read? No. Books are basically, there are books which have stations, okay? So you can practice stations from there if you want to practice. But usually, like, I think whatever stations are being covered, that will cover almost all types of stations, okay? Is it not difficult? If timer is not there, how to know ourselves? No. Basically, if timer, it's all, that is the biggest challenge. No? So once you are preparing for the exam, you have to prepare like this, that you are remembering only the things which can be told in 10 minutes, right? So this comes with the practice. You can wear a watch, but let me tell you frankly, you will not have a single second to go down and look at your watch. And if you do this, you waste your time, right? So it is not basically that. Yes, the division of time was 9 minutes. Ideally, it should be 8 minutes because role player will also speak. You have to give 2 to 3 minutes to role player also to speak, right? So therefore, we should limit ourselves to 8 minutes. In exam, can we draw diagrams and explain diagnosis? Yes. Diagrams is a very perfect way, and they should be line diagrams, and we will be practicing them in our stations. Definitely we'll talk about the diagrams when we talk about explaining the diagnosis. Diagrams is a very effective way of explaining. Yes, good. So I think I answered all the questions. Did I leave anything? Fine. Shall we go ahead? Now, I'll talk about the scorecard, right? This is important because when we have to plan our studies, so understanding the scorecard is very, very important. So usually for every domain, there are 8 to 10 points in your exam, right? So there are 8 to 10 points. Like I tell you that in patient safety, there are 8 to 10 points, right? So when out of 10, if you have told 8 points, like you have told almost 70-80% points, then you score 2 points. Okay. It is not that you have to speak 10 out of 10, but if out of 10 you are speaking 7 or 8 points, you score 2 points, and 2 points means you are pass. If you tell 6 points, if you are at 60%, then it becomes borderline. If it is 5 points or below that, then you fail the station, right? So you have a great margin. Like if you are speaking up to 60%, you are still safe. But if you are telling only 50%, then you fail, right? So this is very, very important to understand. And this will be marked for all the domains, right? And finally, after 14 station, your score for each domain will be calculated. They will not calculate the score for every station. They will calculate the score for every domain. So now in one of the station, if you haven't done the patient safety nicely, but in next 13 stations, you have done the patient safety very nicely, then overall you pass patient safety. But if in out of like 14 stations, in 8 stations, you were bad in patient safety, and in 6 you were good, so more likely that you will fail. So this is how the marking is summed up. It is not summed up as a total marks in that particular station. It is like for that particular domain. You have to pass in the domains. At least 4 domains you have to pass out of 5 domains. Right? So this is how the scorecard is. Now we see that there are 4 types of stations. Overall, there are 4 types of stations. So you see this bigger chunk is the station, which is the patient. The patient is the role player. 70 domains means, sorry. Dr. Shavi, what do you mean by your question?
Last slide, ma'am. In that cloud, it is written 70
Yes,
domains.
yes. So that is basically the total domains tested in 14 stations is 70. Because in some stations it will be 3, in some stations they will test 4, in some they will test 5. But the total domains tested are 70. That is the way the total is. Right?
Okay,
Am
but
I
they,
clear?
yes, I understood, ma'am. And the type of domains are this 5 only.
Types of domains are 5. Yes. But the total will be tested for 70. So 70 into 2 marks, that is 140 would be the total score. Right?
Ma'am, I don't understand.
Okay, so you don't understand. So like I tell you that this is a structured role play task and you will be marked for information gathering, applied knowledge, and
Yes, ma'am.
the communication with colleagues, right? So how many domains I am testing here is 3 domains. 3 domains. In this particular station, I am testing 3 domains. I told you na, just 3 things, right?
Okay, ma'am.
Next station, when you go, I tell you that you are going to, this is a colleague task, and I'm going to test you on these 4 domains. So now in 2 stations, I have tested you for 3 plus 4, 7 domains, right? So total,
Okay, ma'am.
when I total the 14 stations, it becomes 70 domains, right? Clear with everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Understood. Yes, ma'am. Understood.
Okay. Are domains fixed? Each topic? No. No, they are not fixed. Actually, you should talk about all the domains in all the stations. They can mark you on any of the domains, but you have to take care of all the domains in all the stations. Yes. Fine, Dr. Lavanya? Yes. Okay. Now coming to types of stations. So basically you see that this bigger chunk is a part which is a role player station. There is a person in front of you. That person may be the patient or maybe the colleague. Okay, so that is why I've divided this into two. This is the patient and this is the colleague is there. So if the patient is there, you are taking care of the patient, explaining him the diagnosis, talking about the management. If this is a colleague, then you will have to teach him something. Now this blue is a very important part. This is lay examiner station. What is lay examiner station? This is the most scoring one. So basically in this, you are talking to patient. Patient is there, you are talking to patient. Clinical examiner is just sitting there and examining you. But there is one another person sitting here who is lay examiner, right? So I'll just, I think I have a picture. This is here, right? So this is the patient. You are talking to patient, right? This is the examiner. And who is he? He is the lay examiner. He is not a medical person. She is a simple lay examiner who is just sitting there and she is observing how you talk to patient, how you behave with the patient. So she will just look at your communication skills. Now she has marked for you, right? And she is not going to score for the applied knowledge. She does not know what is applied knowledge. She is just looking at how you are behaving with the patient. So out of 14, 4 stations will be lay examiner stations. So if your communication skills are good, you can score very well in the lay examiner stations. And these lay examiner stations are usually the stations which require good communication skills, like breaking bad news stations, angry patient stations. So something like there is there in which you will have to show your good communication skills. So if you score good in the communication skills and you have when you know that you are able to impress the lay examiner and you have done these 4 stations nicely, then you are very much liable to pass the exam. After entering the chamber, do we know who is the lay examiner and do lay examiner interact with us? No. No examiner interacts with you, neither the clinical nor the lay examiner. So nobody is going to talk to you and you don't have to look at who is the clinical and who is the lay examiner. That is not at all your job. You have to perform at the best for the patient. Right? So this is the third type of station. Now what is the fourth type? The fourth type is the structured discussion task. The structured discussion task is something where you and consultant are sitting. He may ask you some questions or your task is written outside only and you just come and you just tell everything to the consultant. So it is something like the vivas, which we have been doing till now in our practicals, right? So this is talking to consultant. So this is how the 4 stations are going to be. And the most important ones are the lay examiner stations, which carry maximum marks. So
And how many those stations do we have for the discussion, structured discussion? Like
structured
for the
discussion, usually 2, but sometimes up to 4 also. 2
okay,
to
ma'am.
4.
So 4 station for the lay examiner, and then 4 stations for the structured discussion.
Usually two, but maybe up to 4.
Ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. And there will be one teaching task and rest all will be your role play stations, right? So if you take 4 as lay examiner, 1 teaching, so 5 gone, remaining 9. Out of 9, 4 if you take out the structured discussion, then remaining 5 will be your role play tasks, right? This is GTG nice talk. You have to read them, but now they are not like you have to read word to word. just the important points, just the important, the executive summary or the algorithms, that are the only things which are required. The more important are the patient information leaflets. Now, what are the common challenges? What are the main concerns why students fail in the exam? Because if we know that what can fail me, then I would be able to practice more for that. So one is the language barrier. That is a very important thing, because language is very important, because you have to communicate totally in the English, right? So if you are not able to put up your what you know into the proper English, then it is difficult. Ineffective communication. You are speaking, but you are not able to communicate. See, there is a difference between telling something and communicating something. Telling something is, I just gave you a lecture and that's finished. Communication is, I'm interacting. I want to know whether you understood or not. I want to clarify your doubts. I want to take you also part in the communication. So that is, if you are ineffectively communicating, then it's not going to work. So many a times people, they just practice on their own. They will speak up the question and then they will answer also. This is not a good way, because in this you may land up into ineffective communication, because you already know the next question is going to come like this. So you already have the answer prepared in your mind. But when suddenly a person in front of you asks you something, then you are not prepared for it. So it's always good to do a practice with a partner, and always have at least 3-4 partners, not 1 or 2. Because see, everybody is working, everybody has his own schedule, own family life. Sometimes when you are ready to practice, the other may not be free. So if you have 3-4 people around, then you can, any of the two can practice at any particular time. So if you want to take out this part, ineffective communication, then the role player, the practice with the other partner is the most important thing there. Inconfident. Oh my God, I don't know anything. Just panicking. That is what makes you inconfident. So don't panic. Okay. Practice. Read, practice. But don't be inconfident. Time management. From the very beginning, try to make yourself time manage. Like when I tell you that you have to speak introduction in 1 minute, so from the very first day when you go through the introduction video and you are memorizing those sentences, from that time only, time yourself for 1 minute, right? So it is possible, but you have to, from the very beginning, you have to cautious about it. Don't miss the patient safety. Patient safety is the most important thing, and we will be highlighting this in all of the templates. Inadequate knowledge. If at least, if I don't know what to ask in the history, what to talk about in the diagnosis, how to talk in the management, then obviously I'm not going to make it. So these are the main things which are the concerns and the challenges which the students fail while appearing in the exams. What is important is, like I told you, that we have to read, we have to revise, and we have to recall in the exam. So for the effective revision, whenever you do any station, make a 1-page notes for that particular station. Just 1-page notes. I'll be giving you the templates, ready templates, but this 1-page notes you have to write like this. In any particular station, like you write introduction, ask concern, check understanding, set agenda, then offer her information leaflets, then start with the history. These are the 4 things which I'm going to ask in the history, specific 4 things which I need to ask here. Then write about diagnosis, 1 line, how I'm going to explain. Then management, these are the 3 management options I'm going to offer to the patient. Expectant management, medical management, surgical management. These are the 3. And then I will conclude and offer her to write back to GP or offer her help from the support groups. So if you write these 10 sentences, you have made a 1-page notes for yourself, right? So now how does this help? You can always go back in 2 minutes, hardly 2 minutes, you can revise these points. And these are the points which are required for the exams. You don't need a long book or a green top guideline for that. Template what I have given you, that will have a complete language sentences. But every time when you become fluent, you don't need to revise the complete sentences every time. So finally, when you are near the exam, you can just remember your main points and you can just go ahead. So 1-page notes are the best way of revising and recalling your subject. And once you tie the things in a bundle, they become easier when you go to exam. Because if you remember, there are 4 points I need to talk about this. Now you have told 3 points. So your mind will keep on pointing you that 1 point is left, 1 point is left. So you can easily remember that. But otherwise, if you have not tied the things, then you will not remember whether there were 3 points or the 4 points. So this is the best way of preparing yourself for the last few days of exam preparation. So 1-page notes, I'll tell you, I'll show you how to do that. And this will be the easiest thing you can do for yourself, for the revision and recalling in the exam. So how we are going to talk about, first 2-3 days for every module will be dedicated for videos. Then we will take live sessions. Then next 2-3 days will be dedicated for homework stations and 1-page notes. So this is how we are going to work together. So knowledge along with motivation and good communication skills with good time management will bring you your dream degree. So that's how we are going to practice for this exam. And from tomorrow, I'm going to post the schedule in the group and you all can start from there, right? Now the session is open for your questions. Thank you, Dr. Chavi. Any questions? Any questions?
Ma'am, the templates that are being given, they behave like the skeleton on which we have to frame
No,
frame the
templates
station.
templates are full. Initially, the basic template is given as a frame, but the live stations, what stations we will be practicing, for them, you will get a complete template. That is not a frame. That is a complete thing. Starting from hello, I am Dr. Bhavna here. Starting from there till the end, it will be a complete template. But the basic template will be a frame. Of course, you will have to fit the things according to the station in that.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, actually, how many stations are there? Like, for example, like 250. Mostly, how many stations do we need to practice? Like,
Almost like 150 to 200.
okay.
So
Okay.
like 120 or more than that, like 130 we are covering in our live sessions only. Then when we'll do the revision and recall practice, so again around 60-70 stations will be covered in that. And homework stations, so almost we are covering all the required stations.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you. Does practicing with a layman or non-medico help? Yes, definitely it helps. When you have a complete role player that information in front of you, better is you don't read that. Give that information to the layman or the non-medico person only and tell him to ask the questions from you when you are explaining. Obviously, that's also a good thing to do. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Zarina. Okay, any more questions?
Thank you, ma'am. All clear. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Yes, thank you, Dr. Huma. Thank you, Dr. Rajni. So, okay, so I think many of you have already enrolled. So, few who have not, they can just note down the numbers if they are not our previous students. Then you can just note down and I'll also post the link in the Telegram group. So, or you can just scan this QR code for our website. Okay, bye-bye. Good night. And yes.
Good night, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Okay, so from tomorrow we'll start in the group. Okay, bye bye. Take care.